Welcome to this discussion on the development of biotextiles. We are here to talk about a project that we have done in the Netherlands on the development of biomaterials, in which we have collaborated between scientists and designers, and it was a collaboration between the University for Agriculture and Research and the ArtEZ University of the Arts. My name is Lucie Huiskens. I am a program coordinator of an innovation network in the Netherlands, Next Fashion. It's an innovation network for fashion and textiles. And I'm also working for the ArtEZ Center of Expertise Future Makers, which is the partner in this project that we are going to discuss. You are all very welcome to join us in the discussion. I will introduce, or we will introduce the project to you first, and then later on, at some point, whenever you want to pose a question, you are very welcome to do so, and I will come to you with a mic. If you are not, if you don't feel to speak in English, that's not a problem. You can pose your question in French, and we will have it translated. And then that would require me to have a thing too. Okay. So we are here with several people from several backgrounds, and I would like to start to pose the introduction question to the two professors that we have here from ArtEZ about the project, and maybe a quick introduction of yourself. Yes?
Well, thank you for the introduction, Lucie. My name is Danielle Bruggeman. I'm professor of fashion at ArtEZ, University of the Arts. We do research into fashion, the current challenges in the fashion system. And together with Jeroen van den Einde, my colleague, we lead the Center of Expertise Future Makers, where we do practice-based research into developing new materials and more sustainable value chains in the field of fashion and design. Maybe it's good if we could just...
Yeah, so my name is Jeroen van den Einde, Professor of Product Design and Interior Architecture, also involved in this project, maybe more from the perspective of innovative material use. And we initiate this project because there are a lot of designers, especially in the Netherlands, I think, that work with new innovative biomaterials, but they have a lot of questions to bring their research further and need knowledge from different universities, research centers, and want to share the knowledge. So we brought them together in one project called The Future of Living Materials, and connected to the Wageningen University, what is for us a very special university, because they have different kind of expertise that we can connect to that kind of research, not only based on material research with plant sciences, for example, but also the side of consumer behavior and business models. So we have the artistic cultural side in the project, we have the economical side in the project, and we have the scientific material research side in the project.
Okay, thank you very much. As a matter of fact, you can see images from the project and all the different types of research and materials that the designers together with the scientists worked with. You can see them on the screens. So it will run in an endless loop. So the images will pass through. through, but we think it gives a good background information about what we did in the project. So thank you for your short introduction. And I would like to ask Tjeerd Veenhoven and Laura Luchtman to briefly introduce themselves and also focus on the work that you did within the future of living materials.
So I'm Tjeerd Veenhoven. I'm a material designer and a product designer. I have my own practice for a while now. But in this case, I'm very much involved as a coach to assist in this project, designers making formulating a research question and working together with scientists in this. Yeah.
Is his mic working? Could you hear him? Okay.
I'm Laura Luchtman. I'm a textile designer from Rotterdam, and from my studio, I work on commercial projects where I design prints and patterns for fabrics and clothing. And next to the commercial projects, I engage in research in innovative and sustainable materials. And one of these projects is Living Color, and it's a project where I dye textiles with bacteria that produce pigments. I do it with another designer from Rotterdam, Ilva Siebenaar. And with this project, we collaborated with the Future of Living Materials project.
Okay, thank you. And then last but not least, Kim, you are from Wageningen University. Could you also explain your role in the project shortly?
Yes, sure. So my name is Kim Poltner. I'm a professor in circular business at Wageningen University and Research and founder of the Circular Fashion Lab. So my part in the project, as Jeroen already pointed out shortly, is the research part, the academic research, but also the business case. So when we develop the beautiful materials that we can see on the screens, they're amazing. They can grow on your skin. They can alternate in color. They have many interesting properties, but how can we actually skill them up, take them to the market, and let consumers be attracted to them? So,
okay. Okay, so that should give you a little bit idea of what the project was all about, and I think that maybe it's good to hear if there's any question that you say, okay, I'm not quite sure if I understand what the project was, so please let me know, and then we might clarify that. You're fine. Everyone's fine. Okay, then we move on to the first important question, of course, and that's about. Okay, now we are here with researchers in the area of design and fashion and cultural sciences. We are having here designers and design researchers or designers who have interest in research. We have a scientist in the area of business development, business models. So that is our very different specializations, and so you had to collaborate. Could you clarify a little bit about this collaboration and the importance of the collaboration and the success of it? What made it a success, maybe?
Yeah, I think indeed we brought together very different fields from art, design and science. But I also think that is very important because we need that kind of interdisciplinary collaboration to bring together the knowledge and to develop new knowledge together on these challenges in fashion and in design, how to transition to a more sustainable future. And especially when you look at the development of bio-based materials, a lot of designers are experimenting with that. But they don't always have the right scientific knowledge to optimize those materials. And that's why the collaboration is so important. And also when looking at Wageningen University, there is a lot of scientific knowledge about sustainability, energy and water, biomaterials, plant science. And there suddenly discovered that there's a completely new field, fashion, to contribute to. So it's a very interesting and important collaboration.
Yeah. that's a good bridge to the question of why is fashion an interesting topic for a university, technical university like Wageningen. Could you explain?
Yes, of course. What Danielle mentions is really interesting, because what we saw was that these scientists that work in laboratories and have a certain way of enacting their profession, they are really inspired to work with designers together, because it really helps them to break out of their fields, so to say, and to imagine the future. So it's really interesting when we're talking about the future of fashion and creating a more circular transition towards closing the loop in the fashion industry, etc., is that these scientists can, you know, by collaborating with designers, you get these kinds of interesting interactions, actually. Yes.
Okay, and maybe from the designer's point of view?
Exactly, from the designer's point of view, it's also interesting. So I think many of the designers, like I myself, and I think Laura as well, so we have a very, you know, clear goal in mind. Very much we want to change something with the consumer, we want to make something that's more sustainable. So we have an idea, and then we go, you know, develop it on our own, quite oftenly. We come to some proof of principle or some sketch or something that is, you know, it tells a story, but it's not really there yet. And you know, we've been in that stage as a designers for a few years now. So we need these type of programs to connect. Indeed, first we need to formulate a proper research question, which is already hard enough. So we need to have a look at what actually we did, and then we have to stipulate and find specific questions within that needs answering or that needs clarification. So that's the first step. And then, of course, indeed, we need to be connected to scientists, which is nice because, to my surprise, these scientists are as eager in making their knowledge applicable as I am as a designer. So it was actually quite an interesting match there. So yeah, for us designers, I feel it's also crucial to do this exercise. Yeah.
And
yes. What was really triggering me in this project was that you also see we work also together with students from Wageningen University, that there are different ways to do research. So designers are very strongly based in feelings about the consumer market, what people want, their behavior in a more intuitive way. And also their research is very practical based, in the studio, testing materials. And when you look at the students at Wageningen University, their research is strongly based on literature research, conceptual models. And in the project you saw a kind of mix of these kind of research methods. So we saw students going to the kitchen, make their own fruit ladder, to bake their own fruit ladder, to get a new material, and that was really an eye-opener for them. And another side is that I heard that from the students who work on this project, that it was amazing for them to connect their scientific knowledge to a research project that they can feel that could have societal impact. So the idea that our knowledge is not knowledge as such, but knowledge to improve things in the world, that was very amazing and make the connection very well, I think.
So you say that the students from the Wageningen University, they got a view of how they really could help improve situations in real life, where before they were more, let's say, literature studies and
more
thinkers,
closed up in the labs, so as research as such.
Yeah, but I can imagine that, let's say, the doing attitude of designers and the thinking attitude maybe of scientists, maybe a little bit exaggerated, but even so, I can imagine that it's very difficult to combine that in a successful collaboration. Can you?
Well,
we found out that it worked surprisingly well because scientists are also creative thinkers, and that's something I didn't realize before I started collaborating with designers or scientists. So yeah, I think you have to, at the beginning, you have to kind of learn how to speak each other's language, because we use very different terms, and we have a different way of thinking, because the designers are more practical based and the scientists are more analytical. But I think the collaboration works especially well, because you have not only scientists, but also designers have a really different way of approaching a subject. Yeah.
And have you? Could you say that it also changed your own way of working? Are you now approaching things differently than you did before joining this project?
Yes. Before I would just think about what do I want to do, and I just start experimenting. And now I'm more approaching it from an analytical side, and I'm also reading scientific articles to support my idea or my results. So that's a different way. Yeah.
Wow. I think you wanted to add something to that?
Well, I see many people looking at the screens. This is, for example, a type of leather made out of orange peels. So this is made by students from Wageningen University, but you've also seen materials on the screens made out of mycelium. So the fungi, the mushroom, the wristband, the watch that you saw. Here you see them mixing, literally in a kitchen almost, food waste and making a type of leather out of it. And there was another image that passed by, was kombucha, so a type of green tea. We call that biocouture. So these are the kind of innovations we're talking about, because maybe, when we're just discussing it, it remains too abstract for our audience. You asked...
So please continue also in maybe explaining a little bit.
Which is this one? I don't know. I don't know if any of my colleagues knows which material this one is. It's fruit leather as well, yes. Yeah.
It's one of the stages of fruit leather.
Yeah, and so that's maybe a little interesting addition to also what you just asked me. So why is Wageningen University and Research an institution that is world famous for agri-food research, and especially sustainable food? Well, we see that the expertise that we have around food supply chains is very interesting to also let it benefit fashion supply chains. Because when we're working with these types of materials, we're working sometimes with food waste, and we make textile materials. Yes, exactly.
Things,
yeah. So this is a type of mushroom, and it almost looks like a cotton pad, and it can be modeled on the body. So it's also custom made or tailor made, and really on the body. So it's really interesting, and I understand that Laura is working on trying to dye this types of material. So. So this is what I wanted to add.
I see some people think, oh Jesus, mycelium growing on the skin. I think you didn't like the idea of having it on the skin, no?
It's antibacterial.
It's
Don't
antibacterial.
worry.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to add to that. Yes.
In fact, that's a really interesting research question. What will it do with people on your skin? So we are not at that stage at this moment, but it's part of the continuing of the research project. What is the effect when we wear this kind of materials on our bodies? And so maybe there are some ideas in the audience.
Yeah. Okay. So shall I go and ask? So you want to ask? Could you relate to wearing a garment made of mycelium?
Yes. Why not? Why not?
No problem.
Perhaps the question is that better for the planet and environment, because you don't have to take new resource? It just grows easily, finally? For me, it's a question.
Okay, so for you it's important to know that when it's better for the planet, then you might consider it. I think the idea, of course, it's a very natural method that, or material that also is biodegradable. Once you put it in the ground, it's going back again to yeah. So that is one thing, and another thing is that the way you grow it on a mold, for instance, that makes that you can produce zero waste garments. So you grow, as it were, the garment. So you don't work with patterns anymore, but you develop a 3D garment in one go. So that would be another way of being of sustainability, of working with the materials. So maybe I could ask you: would you have a problem with wearing a mycelium garment?
Depends if it's still comfortable.
Okay. So it must be comfortable, but otherwise you wouldn't want to have it. We can ask, because those people have worked with it. So what would you say, or what is the level of comfortability of these kind of materials? Who can say something?
I can say something about the watch, because we dressed our executive. Oh, that's me. We dressed the executive president of our university actually in a completely circular outfit last September by the opening of the academic year. So the watch that you saw with the leather band, she wore it. So I know from her experience what it's like, and it's really, it's like a suede type of material on your skin. It's very comfortable, it's breathable, it feels like suede on your skin. So that was really nice. And then also the scarf, for example, that she wore, you'll see the photos rotating later on. The lady in the purple dress, that's her, Louisa Fresco, and the scarf was dyed with bacteria by Laura, and that is with silk. So silk is, of course, also a wonderful material to have on your skin.
We also try to dye the mycelium patches of Aniela, and she found a way to, because when it dries, it's kind of a hard material, but she found a way to make them smoother and softer. So it's actually, yeah, kind of very comfortable. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a kind of a material in development. So at first it was still a little bit hard, but you say, okay, in this project we already made some steps in the collaboration with the scientists to come up with ways that it's softer and more comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's nice. Maybe it's interesting to know. I asked a few of the audience if they would feel comfortable in wearing these type of products, but it would also be interesting to know if there's some question or maybe want to share an experience in this type of interdisciplinary collaboration between, let's say, all kind of different backgrounds, design or and technicians. Would there anyone care to comment on this? I saw you nodding. Maybe you could tell a little bit about your. No, I was looking at him. Do you have experience with interdisciplinary collaboration between designers and others?
Yeah.
Maybe you could state your name then.
Okay, my name is Chen, from China. From my view, I think we have to think about nature and environment. That's good for us, because you can see so many Chinese people come here for the fabric or everything. Last 20 years, they spent so many times on production like that, and so many people working hard like that. So we have to think about nature and environment.
So you think that's something that is getting more important in China now too, to think about, let's say, the environmental impact of the textile industry, maybe?
Yeah, and also not only in China and in other countries like Bangladesh. Okay. Yeah, the salary is very cheap, very, very cheap. They are hard in work. Like that.
Okay, so you have to come up with new types of innovations in order to account for these low salaries? That to be able to I'm not sure what the salary has to do with it. That's it. That's my question actually. So, is that? Could you clarify a little bit that what you were stating about the salary?
I think for the other country, we can care about this because the very cheap salary and for leave is very, very problem. Okay. But on shop, every shop price is high, like that.
Okay, that's maybe an issue that some of you could comment on, because that could be a question, no? If we develop these type of materials, can they? Yeah, I will come back to you. But when we develop these type of materials, can they be competing with the regular textiles that are on the market right now?
Well, the short comment is that it's going to be very difficult, and it has to do, of course, with how we calculate the cost of the materials we use right now. So currently our cost system is not based on actual costs, so we never encounter the fact that we use something that is never going to be there again, like oil. We don't include the cost of these materials being landfilled or causing problems to the national health, to the human health. So, so if through regulation we start actually making real cost analysis, and we take in account all the problems that the current materials have, then I think our alternatives are fine. I think then actually we can compete with that. So it's a change within the system. This, of course, is very hard, but through regulation and certification, I think we're coming closer to bridging that gap. And especially in China, it's interesting to see that they also implement regulations onto the fashion industry themselves, making sure that the actual costs are actually being calculated, which is interesting. Sadly, though, often the cost for this development is deducted from the wage, from the salary. So that is a problem. But at a certain point, we have to go the other way. The fabrics have to become a little bit more expensive, and then our innovations will hopefully have more chance.
Okay, so it would require a system change. I think you also wanted to comment on this collaboration question that I posed?
Very quickly, because I think definitely salary is part of the question, because at the end of the chain we have to sell the clothes, and if we take so many times to grow up clothing made in mushrooms, it means that the price at the end of the chain will be much higher than what we find already in the fashion store. So for the consumers could be super hard to afford this kind of piece. So maybe if the wool people like will professional and try to work on this psychological idea of what a price means, that could be part of the solution to make people accept to buy a garment a bit more expensive that requires more time to be made. But as soon as the consumer is not accepting to invest more in clothing, and if thinks that a pair of jeans costs 10 euros, it's impossible. So how have you think about it, developing your own material, like how the market could receive it and be able to adopt it?
Sometimes I also think right now
I just wanted to say, I thought that was a question for Kim, but you can start answering it.
I also think that right now we have a choice. We have a choice to buy a pair of jeans of 10 euros or a pair of jeans of 100 euros. But when you take away that choice, the government does it all the time with raising taxes, for example, then we don't have a choice anymore, and then we just do it. So I think, of course, still think sustainability is a big problem for the lower development countries and people with lower wages and lower salaries. So if we only develop new products that are affordable to the luxury markets and not for the lower markets, then you keep the problem, it will continue. So I think we also really have to look at products that will be affordable to the lower markets. But in the beginning, it's very hard when you're trying to develop a new product that doesn't exist. So I think it will take some years to get to that level.
And Kim?
Yeah, I think the question is really about value. So to put value back into the equation. So for customers to understand that they need to value their textile waste and how we're going to put that back into the system, right? But when you're talking about the mainstream market, let's not forget that CNA, a mainstream brand, I'm making PR here, sorry for that, has put a Cradle to Cradle t-shirt on the market in June 2017. And Cradle to Cradle means that it retails for €9. You can buy it in the shop and you can put it literally in your compost bin and it will biodegrade. So it's already out there, and luckily the bigger players in the industry are doing this kind of work as well. H&M with the Global Change Award is focusing on innovators like we have sitting here. So a lot of great developments are happening, and this is, I think, an interesting project to which we're definitely going to continue doing to see how can we get the synergy out of collaborations between scientists and designers. So we need to work towards a circular fashion future.
Okay. That issue of, let's say, the price and the way the consumer is currently not adding very much value to the garments they buy, that brings me actually to, let's say, the ideas that Aniela had when she started growing these mycelium garments. And I don't know if because she's not here, so I hope that one of you can comment on that, because I think one of the things that she said was, well, when people love fast fashion, let's say buy garments that they wear for 3 weeks and then want to get rid of because they want something new, then in that case it's actually very wise to use a material that also does not last longer than, let's say, 3 weeks. Was that an issue in her research? Can someone comment to that?
Yes, I think that's right. She called it fast fashion, which is of course a bit a provocative term to use, but she used it in such a way that it's fast fashion with bio-based sustainable materials that you can almost compost after wearing it. And it's a radically different way, an alternative way of consumer behavior, actually. It's playing into current consumer behavior with sustainable materials. But of course you can also raise the question if that is a tenable solution for the future, because if you look at how we consume now, I don't think that is very sustainable for the future in many different ways, socially, materially, environmentally, in many different ways. So I think there's also a very difficult challenge, but a very important challenge there in terms of consumer behavior. And okay. I think your question also came from an observation of current consumer behavior. So yeah, that's part of the challenge.
Okay, so we have heard the name of the consumer is mentioned a few times now, of course, the consumer is serviced by, let's say, the labels and the producers of garments. I noticed that they are not on the table right here. Were they part of the project? And if not, why not? Could you comment on, let's say, the role of the industry in innovation projects like this?
Well, the students that worked on these projects have definitely interviewed a lot of consumers. So, I mean, the samples that we had at the time, we're talking last year, were so small that sometimes they managed to show and let consumers actually feel a little bit of this new fruit leather material, for example. And most of the time what they found is that consumers are extremely interested because sustainability is in your face nowadays, at least in the Netherlands. I don't know so much about France, but people are really conscious about urgency of global warming, social inequality, etc. So there's this general awareness of sustainability and how important it is, and people are looking for these type of products to buy.
So you say that the labels or the companies actually don't know a lot about their customers, so that because they are not interested yet in these type of developments,
No.
and the consumer is.
I think companies at the same time are also very much looking into how they can, make their supply chains more sustainable, etc. And that's the interesting thing about this project, I think, because we're reinventing current fashion supply chains, right? So that is, I think, a really interesting thing.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to see where we are. I mean, this is, if you walk around here, you see all these companies selling a lot of fabrics. So this is a sales fair. So this is all about the business, about selling stuff. And it's fantastic that we have this discussion right here, instead of some isolated bubble somewhere, where it all is academic or where it's all philosophical. So we're actually into a trade fair where fabrics are sold. Therefore, I can say, and I gladly agree with my Chinese friend there, that also even on a producer level, on an industrial level, these questions are there already. It's just that it's very difficult to actually fulfill the whole value chain in this process. But I cannot believe that not everybody within the value chain is trying to find some way of gradually making this more sustainable, either by legislation or by ideals, or because their target groups, their consumers, are indeed walking away. Perhaps not all of them very rapidly, but you see there is a change from a consumer-drawn change that should worry any producer eventually. So you better be there right now, because otherwise you probably will be slightly too late, which is an interesting proposition.
You asked why aren't any companies and industry partners involved in the project right now. I think it's also important to understand that this project is in a very experimental phase, an experimental phase of developing new materials, dyes with bacteria, for instance. And I think we should also really see the value of that experimental phase, because it's very important to focus on that first before you can look into opportunities for ways to upskill it. So this is the phase that comes first, and that's what the focus has been on now. And I think now we are ready in some cases to take the next step and to look for partners that can help in the upscaling.
Okay, so what you say is in this project it maybe even would have been hindered the process if we would have had companies on board that maybe were too eager to have some results that they can bring to the market tomorrow.
Yeah. I think there's another problem, because indeed it is an experimental phase, but we are looking for totally new, different value chains. So we were talking that a company like a brewer is maybe more interesting for you than a textile company. So we are looking into total new value chains with other kinds of companies. So that makes it very difficult to connect it to small innovation in the existing system.
But is that then also something that maybe some of the producers who are here today and coming from the traditional textile industry probably, that they should have their eyes open for, let's say, new developments coming from totally different types of industries or of companies? Is that, and what would you, would there be any advice that you could give them, or some?
Well, obviously this is already happening. So we see the development of certain type of yarns that slowly come into the market that needs to be applied. This, though, indeed is just still a yarn, so that's reasonably easy to apply within an existing production system. But especially when you look at the work that Aniela does, the growing materials, this is something that I think is, from any producer, interesting, because whether you produce textiles or whether you grow textiles, from a producer perspective, it's about doing an investment, making sure that the market is there, producing a certain quantity that you can sell. And to an industrial tycoon in China, what you produce is not necessarily the big challenge. It's not to be part of the system that actually you can sell, that you can make money with, is the important thing. And the rest is your expertise. That's what you do best. So you have an upcoming material, an upcoming market, and it's your job as a producer, as a manufacturer, to make sure that you can actually supply that. So that's your explicit quality. So therefore, I think for many producers, it's not a very big leap to actually start producing new things, because they want to do that. That's what they do.
Okay, so let's check if what the reaction is. Who agrees with Tjeerd, or who does see some maybe problems arising at the horizon when you see developments like this coming up with totally new materials and new types of, let's say, textile applications, but not really being a textile, but a kind of, how do you call them? Grovens?
Yeah, grovens, yeah.
No wovens, but grovens. Grovens. Okay. Someone would like to...
Any textile producers around here? No?
No textile producers?
On the other hall.
In the other hall, they're all selling their stuff. Okay. Any other question right now that you want to raise to the table? No? Okay. Alice?
It's me again, sorry. So I think that as far as I know, I haven't seen everything, all the development regarding the biomaterial and all the possibilities, but from now it's still very limited in terms of style. And it's true that it's kind of like some of them are really convincing to replace leather, for sure, but or to be an alternative. But I mean, regarding, I think one of the challenges is the style that we can get and the different choices that we can get finally for, again, the final consumer, because people, when they buy fashion, they are not only buying the functionality of the product, they try to buy their image as well. And I think as human are, and it's a good thing, I think, all different, they need to express different things, so they will choose different patterns and different kind of fabric, shiny or very sober, or so do you think that, I think nature has a lot of potential, but still if we still see fabrics from traditional plants like cotton, or while it's not a good solution for the environment, or like oil derivated products, it's because all the channel is organized to make it become something totally, also it's very abundant and cheap, but it's also because everything is organized to be able to transform it, to give a lot of possibilities to the final consumers. So
I think the problem here is, or the challenge is threefold. So first of all, of course, you have the lack of possibilities from the material. So it's often quite limited, so there is not that much to work with. Similarly, on the other side is the consumer that's not really knowledgeable on how to basically use this material in their garments, in their style, because they have not much experience with mycelium. And then in the middle, I think it's also a design challenge, because a lot of the companies, brands we work with, these design teams, they have never worked with these materials, so they don't even know how to apply them, even if they wanted. Because usually, in my opinion, when I give a new textile to a bunch of designers in a room, beautiful things come out, you know, and actually that is something that always amazes me, because from my own little bubble making materials, I can only see problems also with the styling. But then I get some nice fashion designers in, and I'm just surprised how many possibilities there are. So I feel it's perhaps in the middle. We need to get more of these materials out to design teams of brands, so they can actually start using that within their identity. Yeah.
That's, I don't know if someone of Zero Waste Fashion Designers is here. We had a discussion with them yesterday. I'm going to have a... Is she coming? Yes, please come here. Because what you are saying is actually that that the role of the designer in relation with, let's say, next steps in the phase where you work together with pattern makers, etc. That actually what you are doing now is combining these functions again, and that you need that, and that could be a kind of the same thing as what you say here. could you comment on that? Is that something that you think is important, that we change the chain, so to speak?
Yeah, I think, well, the zero waste fashion design is all about the combination of design, of pattern making, and also about optimizing. So actually, right now we are in a linear process in the fashion industry where the designer draw the sketches and then he send the S file to the pattern maker, and then the pattern maker send other files to the optimizer. And often they are not in the same building, not in the same country, so it makes collaboration very difficult. So when it comes to make design choices, they don't care about optimization. They don't analyze how the pattern pieces will impact the fabric consumption. So in zero waste design, we try to make those people collaborate together in order to create design that don't produce any leftovers during the cutting. So yeah, I think it's really rethinking the way we work together and how we can better optimize our knowledge and better work together. Yeah.
So again, it's a kind of example of the necessity of interdisciplinary collaboration.
Yeah,
because
exactly. Yeah.
if you consider each other as a supplier in the chain, then you cannot come to really new innovations.
Yeah, yeah. Because for me, it's very important to have, industrial, technical knowledge when you design things. Otherwise, you're not able to make good products because you don't have all the info. So of course, you cannot have all the knowledge, but it's just making people. Just giving them all the tools to work together.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So you see that actually also in not only in material development, but also in there are other ways to try and make the fashion sector more sustainable. And I think the zero waste fashion design is one of the approaches that you could take, of course, to use the material itself better. And this one is about, let's say, new materials, but the knowledge or the experience that we have is sort of the same, so that you need interdisciplinary collaboration to really succeed. So now this project has finished, and it was very successful, I think, because we showed it at several exhibitions, and we had several places where we discussed the results, like now today here at ArtEZ. So what's next? What are we going to do?
I think we have a lot to do, and in this kind of project we have different kind of researchers. There's very fundamental research on the quality of the material, but also the research on consumer behavior, for example. That's what we try to do in the future, is to address this kind of topics and to find partners and finance to do this kind of sub-research in the whole framework of the future of living materials.
Okay, and what type of partners would you look for then? Maybe, or would you make another comment?
Yeah, no, I wanted to respond to that as well. I think we are looking for different ways to continue the project because it raised so many new questions. When you do research, always new questions come up. And I think in a lot of different fields, questions came up in terms of material development, design processes, the social and the cultural and the economic side of it, the business side of it. So we are finding partners that are interested in exploring these questions together on a material level, on a production level, on the consumer level. So we're looking for different kinds of partners indeed that we can work together with to co-create.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what exactly it was what you would like to do, or what type of partner you would like?
Well, for me, of course, it's the biggest challenge is when, or the fun thing is to bring this outside the lab. I mean, it's great to work with the scientists, and I mean, designers in their way have their own labs, creative studios. So at a certain moment, I'm super excited to pitch one of these solutions outwards and to find that link with a producing party. And as Jeroen mentioned, it's quite unclear, which is interesting, which party this is going to be, because this is not necessarily going to be a textile producer. It might be a mushroom grower, or it indeed might be a beer brewer. We don't exactly know who that partner is going to be. So I think in the future it's also about, you know, going outwards and looking for similar, like-minded people who understand that we might be that new value chain. So for me, it will be great in the coming years if we could make a few of those best practice examples, some case studies where we can actually create a new value chain, not necessarily connected to the existing.
Laura?
Well, if I speak for my personal project, we're now working with a company that is going to test our colors, test our textiles to see if it fits the industrial standards for color fastness, for example, and to see if the antibacterial qualities of the bacteria pigments itself stay in the fabric after dyeing and washing.
Just to interrupt, that's the material that is dyed with bacteria.
That's a silk scarf dyed with bacteria. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And yeah, the bacteria grew on top of that textile. That's why it's so stained. It shows the natural growth patterns of the bacteria. So the next step is to have our colors tested, and once we get those test results back, then we can think about commercializing it, because now it's what Tjeerd says, it's in a lab setting. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kim?
Well, I think most possible parties have been mentioned. I could add food producers to this. We could imagine new realities for farmers in the future, that they're not just producing food, but also textiles. That could be really interesting. But I would also love to bring retailers and fashion designers on board and actually let them make a jacket like the one we're seeing on the screen right now, and let people try it out, walk around with it, test it. So I think that's also the types of new collaborators that we're looking for.
Okay, so the labels and retailers that are further up in the chain, you think we are ready to have them on board and let them experiment with the materials too?
For sure, and we did a small research, putting like an advertisement in the newspaper a couple of months ago saying, hey, would you wear this type of material? And we had a lot of customers, like newspaper readers, that read it and emailed us and said, oh, I'm a volunteer, I want to test this out. So it's just nice to see that people are really fascinated by this.
Okay. That was maybe a good last question to the audience. Would you participate in these kind of experiments? Would you come forward as a volunteer to wear and see how a garment like that works out in real life, daily wear and tear? Would you be willing to try it out?
Yeah, for sure. It sounds very interesting, and. As a consumer, I think what we most want to hear is how to take care of the garment as well, because when you have biotechnical wear, it's just to how to take care of it and to make sure it doesn't how it doesn't wash it exactly exactly so.
But for instance, Laura was telling about the tests for instance, of the prints, if the color is fast. Do you think, as a consumer, is that an important thing for you, or do you think that maybe you could have another view of the development of the color over time?
I think it would be a surplus to the product that it has a story. It's a bacteria that's grown on it, and for sure it will change over time, and it gives the fabric and the garment a look of its own. You know, that it sort of develops over time, and it's a side story that I think it's going to sell more.
Well, this exactly is a story that you need to tell the industry then.
Yes, exactly.
Because you're the consumer. And this sounds like a plausible, you know, eloquent story.
Yeah.
But yet they are requested to have a perfectly tested color before they can enter the production process. So there is some friction there that I'm very curious to see solving.
But the consumer really likes the storytelling.
Yeah.
They love that the garment itself has a story. And that is something I think is selling more and more, that you can tell something specific about this garment or this way of dyeing or this way of making a material.
Yeah. I mean, you can compare it with the wear and tear of your favorite leather jacket or your favorite denim, right? I mean, this whole trend of personalization, actually, this would fit perfectly, I think, so.
No, but it's very nice to hear a real life consumer say this. We didn't talk about this before, so be sure I don't know her. So, but thank you anyway for your contribution, because it's great, I think. Is there any other thing that you would like to bring to the table right now? Because it's around 3, so but we might have some time for a few questions or comments, maybe. We always love to hear what you think of our approach. Is there someone who would like to give us some feedback, maybe, on the type of things that we are doing? Maybe you?
Hi, I'm, well, I used to be a fashion designer, and now I went on to art, which is great for artwork. I'm very inspired to do more artwork in more biodegradable material. When I see it as a consumer, though, I'm always very interested in wear and tear. I do want to wear my clothes, and I don't want to be careful. So I do need it, no matter what, to keep, and that is the most important thing of all, you know, things. I love to think organic or more sustainable and everything, but I need to wear it. That's all.
Well, I totally understand that concept, actually. So I want to pose to you 2 things. So you can buy a T-shirt, right? So you buy this T-shirt of this amazing cotton, you know, and it has a perfect dye. It's a black T-shirt. So you can actually wear it for 3-4 years, and it won't change color. So that's one thing. It's going to cost you about, you know, 50 euros because it's high tech. But it's amazing. So you're willing to invest in that because you know it will last for 5 years without any problem. Interesting concept. So then my question would be on the other side: if you have a big box with 1,000 T-shirts made of mycelium, you know, of the material that Aniela is making, and it's also black, but it will only stay black for a few weeks, and then you have to throw it out. So would it be interesting for you to sacrifice, you know, the fact that you want to wear something long and change it for something that is fully biodegradable? Right, so it doesn't matter if you throw it out, and you have 1,000 shirts for the same price. I mean, would that be changing your mind on these concepts?
Probably, but still, I wouldn't have to. You know, I don't want to be careful when I go out. Yeah. So, well, it's great if I can. I love having when I buy a pair of shoes, I will have them for at least 10 years, maybe 15. I keep my things, and it's a very different way to think when you're interested. And
it's also the personal bond with the item, right? That is the thing that you miss. Yeah.
But also, I mean, and bottom line is also a good design. You know, whatever it is, a good design. It's sustainable, and I'm pretty much sold as long as I don't have to be careful.
Yeah, exactly. You're that root to your garments.
Yeah. Well, but it shows that there are several ways to become more sustainable, and I think yours is also one of the important ways that by increasing, let's say, the meaning and the symbolic value of a garment just by wearing it and loving it and having a history, building up a history with it. Also, that is something that is really important in making the garment industry and the textile industry a little bit more sustainable. So I think that we had some different types of approaches to the table today. We had these biomaterials. We quickly brought in, let's say, the zero waste approach. But this is also definitely an approach too. And I think maybe Danielle can comment on that, because it's actually your field of expertise.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It relates to another project that we are doing called emotionally durable design. And that's related to the idea that if you build a very strong emotional bond between product and consumer, that you will hold on to it longer, that you will really have a long-lasting relationship, a meaningful relationship, and that you will want to take care of it, that you will take good care of your clothes because it has a special meaning. So I think that can help to increase the durability and the longevity of materials. It's more of a slow fashion approach, if you want to call it that way. Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for your attention and being with us this last hour. We are, I think, around for a couple of more minutes, so if you want to address us personally, please feel free. But I'll close the session now. So thank you very much, and maybe we speak each other later in person. Thank you.